Welcome everyone to the Ask an Architect show. Here with me today is Teri Coates. Teri, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Teri is a unique guest on the show because this is one of the first folks that we've spoken to that really we haven't spent a lot of time together other than the first 5 minutes with you walking in here. So I'm going to learn right along with you guys, and we're going to hear about Teri's background, your story, and kind of your view on the profession. Mm-hmm. So I want to start with where you are right now and then get into your background through stories. But you are in a very interesting position because you're on the doorstep of starting your own firm.
That's right.
And we've had folks on the show that have been doing it for a while. They've been 10 years plus, and they've kind of walked us through, year 1, year 3, year 5. But you are literally at almost day 1. So let's start there. What made you make the decision to go out on your own? What was the pivot point?
Yeah, so Nick and I were talking earlier about the fact that I didn't necessarily set out to start my own firm from the very beginning. In fact, I actually didn't even know I wanted to be an architect for a really long time.
Okay.
So that's
Start
kind of
there.
unique too, because some people know really early on in their childhood.
A lot of people in this profession.
They know
Yep.
an architect somewhere along the way. It seems like a fun career, so they just
Exactly.
set off down that path.
Sure.
For me, it was a process of discovery. I took a gifts assessment test before I went to college.
That's very formal, yeah.
Because I have a wonderful dad, and he was like, "You're gonna pick a major.
Okay.
You're not gonna go in there and figure it out once you get there, like a lot of people do. Some people that works for them, but he didn't want us to go
Yeah, he
down
wanted you
that
on,
path.
straight and narrow.
So I took a gifts assessment test. Architecture was one of the top things, and it was like a light bulb went off because I'm really nerdy. I love science. I love physics. But I was also very artistic too. So,
So a good combination.
Combined the two. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot, see how it goes. Architecture school is great. It's a love-hate relationship, as many of you know. It's very difficult, but if you can make it through and that's what you want to do, if you love it, you'll stick it out. And then you might go back for round 2, like a lot of us.
Yep.
Get a master's degree. So
Teri has a master's from the University of Oklahoma,
I do,
correct?
yes.
Okay.
And undergrad from Texas A&M University.
So how did we get from Oklahoma to DC? How did that occur?
So I, after finishing my undergrad at Texas A&M, I ended up in Oklahoma City. Worked there for a while and was trying to make sure architecture was what I wanted to do.
Interesting.
Before I went back to get my master's. So really taking that experience, learning from a couple different firms there in Oklahoma City, I decided, you know what, this is what I want to do. So rather than uprooting myself from the industry, I decided to go ahead and take a 2-year master's program and stretch it out to 3 years. So I went ahead and did that, got my master's while I was working and still gaining really valuable experience. And I'm so glad that I did that.
Yeah, I think that's a real strength. If you look at Teri's resume and LinkedIn profile at the very least, you see that there's a lot of work experience that you've had. And that's primarily because you've stayed working throughout most of your education.
Yeah.
Which, some people do, some people don't. But I think that's a huge value add, especially once you hit the doorstep of graduation. And now you have, a lot of experience to draw from, and hopefully you can hit the ground running at a firm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely have the partners at my firm to thank for supporting me through that, because you really have to have the support of your professors, people that you're working with, to be able to continue working and still make your clients feel like they are your only project.
Sure, yeah.
And your only commitment, so.
Absolutely. I think your background is really going to resonate with some folks, because there are people in architecture school right now who are probably in the same way not sure that this profession is 100% for them. But yet you've gone through undergrad, master's, a lot of work experience, and come out on the other side, more bought in than anyone, I would say, by starting your own practice.
Yeah.
So you've gone from I'm not sure what I want to do to I am going to try to be the quintessential architect.
Yeah.
So let's go into the firm that you're trying to start.
Yeah.
Do you have a brand? Do you have a logo? Do you have a differentiation strategy? What are the first pieces and parts that you started to think about to put this together?
Yeah. So my passion for architecture and the thing that I love the most about it has evolved over time, again.
Sure. Yep.
Process of discovery. So as I was doing my master's, working on my thesis, I knew, okay, here's a project. I'm not just going to spend a semester on this. I'm going to spend at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years, working on this one project.
Okay.
I need to find something that I'm really excited about
Sure.
to be able to spend that much time
Absolutely.
on it. So I really honed in on the things that excite me the most about the industry
Okay.
and what we do. And the one thing that I landed on that I was really excited to continue digging into a little bit more is how the built environment affects human health.
Okay.
And through a bunch of research and doing that project, I really landed on mixed use, live, work, and play scenarios that excite me the most about
Okay.
the profession. So that's really what I'm going after is mixes of uses where
Sure.
you're able to live a little bit more of an active lifestyle.
It's interesting for you to frame it in terms of your passion or your personal interest, because I think a lot of people who start their own firms, at least once they've worked for a while, will do it on the piggyback of a particular client or a particular specialty that they've gotten into, and that's just where their career has led them. But you're actually, quote unquote, following your passion, and I think that could potentially lead to the greatest success because you'll care more than everybody else when you're working day in and day out.
Absolutely.
So what kind of clients with mixed use, is that a developer client? I mean, I assume that's a larger corporate development type client. Is that the case?
Most of the time.
Okay.
But I'm also unique in that I'm going to be doing the development myself. So
Okay, we've hit a snag here. Okay, tell me more about that. So it's development
Curveball.
as well, a curveball, yeah.
yeah, so I've done a lot of research over the years and followed Jonathan Siegel. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah,
If
fantastic
you ever see
resource,
this.
Jonathan Siegel out of Southern California.
Yes,
He's in San Diego.
exactly.
Okay, yep.
So he, even though that I know California has nuances that are specific
Sure.
to them, that I can't necessarily apply to what I'm doing or where
In terms
I'm
of market
practicing.
conditions, socioeconomic conditions, things like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I know that the things that he's willing to share will be so helpful for me going into this process.
Okay.
So ultimately, through doing part of his course, I'm in the middle of it right now. I really see the value in being able to have equity in your projects, being able to make more money, but not for the sake of making money, but being able to invest it back into the community where you live. So
Absolutely. And I think on paper it makes a lot of sense. There's also the control factor. I mean, essentially you're more in control of your design decisions, being the client and the designer.
yeah,
Is that fair to say? So do you have a project that is in the works that you're looking at, that you're researching right now? Like, what is the first step in terms of work for you?
Yeah, so the wheels are always turning, and I already have ideas for the next project, but my first project will actually be a multifamily housing project.
Here in DC?
Not here in DC,
Okay.
actually.
Do tell.
I have a lot of curveballs for you.
I love it.
But essentially, my husband and I bought a piece of property about 5 years ago.
Okay.
Our original intention was to build our own house on it.
Okay.
Lo and behold, you were asking earlier how I ended up in DC, so I'm going
Right.
to throw this in here.
Excellent. Let's
So
paint the whole
my
picture.
husband wanted to go to grad school, so we ended up
Okay.
in Boston
Okay.
for a couple years. After that, he landed his dream job here in
Okay.
DC. So now we're here in DC. So kind of moved around a few different
Yep.
places. So
Big circle there.
the piece of property that we own is actually not here in DC. But it provides a fantastic opportunity for me to go ahead and take that piece of land that I already own and go ahead and develop it, use my architecture services as equity in the project, and not
Sure.
have to put too much into it up front. Luckily,
Yeah.
the value of that property has grown
So-
over time. So.
I want to pause here just for a moment and talk about investing in a property, obviously very early on in your career, and how important finances and financial planning are, even from the moment you step out of the gate at graduation, because some of the decisions you make, potentially your first year or two, could parlay into bigger decisions and bigger opportunities later, whether it's a piece of property here and there, your first townhouse, buying a condo, whatever it is. All of that parlays to 7 years down the road and making it a bigger opportunity.
Yeah.
So you've obviously made some smart financial decisions, and I think that's important for our audience to hear.
Yeah.
So you're gonna do this one project first, and then kind of step by step see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely
Now,
have ideas.
Are you hiring staff? How operationally? How are you going to get this done? Like, where do you have an office out of your home? Are you investing in software? What do I need to do? Step one, to make this happen for myself if I'm interested too.
Well, it is an upfront investment.
Sure.
So there are certainly things that you have to have in order to be able to practice. So I know for myself that I don't work well from home. I've done it before. I get things done, but it's just not the best place for me to be.
I mean, knowing yourself is critical in so many aspects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And so I'm working out of a work-share space. So I do pay a monthly rent to be able to do that. But the network of people that I'm able to plug into is really valuable there. There are other architects who are working in the same space and throughout the nation, throughout the world, that I can reach out to if I have questions, and vice versa, which is really a valuable thing. I do have some hardware and software costs up front that I will have to invest in. And I can tell you that if you decide to practice in multiple states, that is an upfront investment, because
licensing
you
fees.
have your NCARB certification that you have to get. You have to transfer your record to those different states. You have to get your licensure reciprocity there. And some states, like Oklahoma, require that you actually register your business. So your business has to have a license as well.
So administrative licensing fees, those types of things.
There's a lot that goes into it. But
Absolutely.
I'm not planning on hiring anyone right away.
Okay.
I'm gonna
So fully bootstrapped yourself.
Yeah. So I will be doing the bulk of the work. If I decide to contract out some of the work, I'll do that. But oversee the whole process myself.
That way you limit your long-term risks and obligations.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I get more busy, absolutely, I will bring on the people that I need to at that time.
So let's talk about that. As you get busier and you start to go through year 1, year 2, year 3, what defines success in this endeavor for you? Is it the project type and the project scale? Is it impact on the community? Is it financial success? How will you evaluate yourself year to year, whether you're doing what you want to do, whether to keep going? I mean, what defines success in this endeavor? Yeah,
that's a really good question. And I think you hit on 3 really important things. I think all of those things are important because if you're not making an impact on a community in a positive way, to me, you're not being an architect. An architect can't work in a silo and pretend like nothing else exists. So, as we talked about, my passions, that's something that's really important to me. But it is important that I'm financially successful as well, because I have to be in order to do the next project. So
exactly, to have a greater impact, you have to continue to fund the work.
So I think I've talked to a lot of different architects who have been in my shoes somewhere in the last decade. It's still somewhat fresh to them, and they have great recommendations. I highly recommend that if you decide you want to set out on your own, get with people. You may not even know them. You may be meeting them for the first time, but that's a wonderful thing about the profession is people are so willing to share what they learned going through the same process. So I highly recommend that.
You kind of focused on the community impact or the impact of the greater good at the beginning. And I think that's interesting because in our audience, we have a lot of folks who are really interested in social impact and social impact in terms of how design can have that social impact. And on the surface, to a lot of people, that means working for a nonprofit, working abroad, doing international development, doing something in a lower socioeconomic area, whatever it might be. But I think what your story highlights is that through actually being an architect and potentially being a developer, you can have a social impact through traditional practice, through traditional business. Jonathan Siegel, you mentioned, has a huge impact on Southern California in mixed use and in some very challenging areas.
Yeah.
So it's not just nonprofit work that has a social impact.
Absolutely.
Architecture in general can have one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Teri, this is all very fascinating. I'd love to welcome you back 100 episodes from now and see how we are at year 1, 2, 3, or whatever it might
Yeah,
be.
hopefully I have some good stories.
Hopefully
for
we
you.
can show a little portfolio here
Yeah.
of your work.
Yeah.
So let's end on kind of a fun note for our audience, a little lifestyle note. Is there something you're reading right now? Can you make a book recommendation or maybe a podcast or TV show, whatever it might be, that is really either inspiring you, entertaining you, motivating you, whatever it might be, something fun for our audience to kind of check out and maybe even get to know you a little bit better?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been reading a lot lately, a lot of different books about starting your own business. I do highly recommend Jonathan Siegel's course on Architect as Developer, if that's the route that you want to go, or even if you want to see what it's all about. The book that I'm just about to start, and I haven't started yet, but it was recommended to me by another architect who is also starting his own business. He's a couple months ahead of me in the process, but it's called Law for Architects.
Law for Architects.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds riveting.
Yeah. Actually, the way he described it is that it's very easy to read. So someone kindly put law into a form that architects might actually enjoy reading.
Yeah.
So
Excellent.
I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent. Well, that's a great recommendation. Teri, thanks so much for being on the show. I also really enjoyed talking about Jonathan Siegel. Jonathan, if you're in DC and want to be on the show, please come on as well.
Yes.
Love to have you.
And come find me too.
Come see Teri. We'll come.
I need recommendations.
This has been great. I think there's a lot of value here, and I think a lot of people really appreciate your perspective. And good luck on your endeavor. And I hope to talk to you again in 100 episodes.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks again for joining us on the Ask an Architect show.